Deuel County Sheriff's Office.
Hello, this is Sean Schwartz. I'm giving you all a call back. Is Sheriff Scott DeCoste in yet?
Just a moment.
Thank you, sir.
This is Sheriff DeCoste. Can I help you?
Hey, this is Sean Schwartz.
Yes, sir.
Did you see the 4 videos I made for you?
I had not. I heard that you had done them, but I had not seen them yet.
I'd like to, you said that Lori told you that she cares about me very much. Is that correct?
Well, what I had told you is you guys had a relationship, however that is, that's between you and her.
Well, I can go back and listen to the video with you talking with me, but you had also said about Cody Sellhorse that, I should have come to you about that. That's the thing is that when I was going down to your office, I was attempting to get that done. Um, Officers all across the board treated me like that. Like when you said that Jordan Anderson had not done his job, that wasn't the only officer who did that.
Uh-huh.
Also, when several of your officers told me that they can't investigate their own department, I went to the state patrol about that. Officer Hahn was at least 5 different encounters with me after that when he should not have been because he was doing the same things that Jordan Anderson had done and Cody Sellhorst had done. I needed to be able to have these things documented and take these people to court. And that started before Natalie was dead. I mean, the first time that I
See,
encountered a situation.
that's the thing, Sean, is I found out about Natalie after I'd been here. I did not know you. I had never made contact with you. This department, to my knowledge, had never made contact with you until after the whole Natalie thing.
No, sir. The first time that I encountered Jordan Anderson was January 8th of 2017. I also encountered him twice more after that in 2017, as well as, sorry, that's my alarm, as well as one other officer who is a larger officer with glasses who I had spoken to. Jordan Anderson had taken me in on suicide watch. I was having a panic attack over the abuse that I was taking because I left Virginia to get away from those people, and it followed me to Boulder where I was being assaulted, and I came here to Chapel to get away from those people, and here in Chapel I was having my life threatened and having people call me. Tim Beeson started getting a hold of me in March of 2017 and harassing me and threatening my life and threatening my family's life. And I gave him 3 days to keep his word before I went and tried to speak to the police. When I spoke to Jordan Anderson on 2 of those occasions, he told me that I just needed to man up. When I spoke to the other officer with the glasses, he told me that he had real police work to do. Now, by this point, I had already been assaulted multiple times and threatened multiple times. That was in 2017.
Was that here in Deuel County?
That was here in Deuel County. Yes, sir. I was getting hate mail and hate messages here in Deuel County at that point in time. That's what I was going to those police officers for. The situation.
I know that you came into the office the first time I officially met you. You came in and you wanted to make a report, so that's when, and you were not happy with Jordan Anderson the day he seen you up at Nettie's. That's the time I knew about. So we talked about that. You were unhappy and rightfully so. So you sat down with Deputy Hahn to make a report, and then you wanted to call, I believe it was behavioral health. So we put you in the office.
It was
Region 1. We gave you our phone, and you called them. And then at which time you got upset And I believe what got my attention is you were so mad I could hear you in the hallway. And then what I heard was then you were insulting me because I wasn't helping you and and all of that. And then at that time, I did ask you to leave the sheriff's office.
Well, sir, is that on your body cameras? Because that's pretty important.
Absolutely, it is, and I do not
Very
believe
good.
it is because I don't believe we had body cameras at that time.
Well, sir, that's the situation that I'm dealing with, is that in multiple situations with multiple police officers, when I was trying to turn in police, their body cameras were off. Jen Beebe informed me that one of your officers had told her that I had reached for their gun and that I had attempted to suicide by cop. And she
Hey,
doesn't.
I know nothing of that because you've never fought with us. You've never done any of that stuff. The only time we've had to deal with you is one time when one of the deputies arrested you on your warrant out of Scotts Bluff, and everybody said you were cordial. And when they took you to Scotts Bluff, if I remember right, you had threatened to harm yourself, and then we took you up there. But to my
No, sir,
knowledge,
that is not correct.
I've never heard of you fighting with anybody. I mean, I can go back and look through these reports, Sean. I don't know for sure, but to my knowledge, I've never heard you, um, never heard that you grabbed an officer's gun and threatened suicide by cop.
Well, sir, that's why it's important for Jen Beebe to make a report about that. That was part of the decisions that she was making there. I literally, when um, that situation happened with Cody Selhorst, that wasn't the first situation that something like that happened. After I had gone in with Molly, the reason that I was so pissed off and went in there with Molly is because I had attempted on multiple occasions to let those officers know, both before and after Natalie's death, what was going on, the threats and the harassment that I was receiving at the hands of the Bollinger family. Their friends were pretending to be autism advocates. However, what I'm wanting to tell you about is the situations with your officers, including Officer Jared Hahn, and the reason that he should not have been there for any of those situations. Um, Prior to me going in there with Molly Smith, I didn't know anything about Officer Hahn. The only interaction that I was positive that I had with him, because I thought he might have been the officer who had told me that he had real police work to do, but I'm pretty sure that officer had glasses. So the first interaction that I can for sure remember Officer Hahn in, there was some homeless people who were or travelers who were in a black vehicle, and I had a box of MREs that I had gotten from Ben Beardsley. I was over at Nettie's Treasures with Laura, and I saw them out there, and I brought them that box of MREs. They had a little kid with them, and I brought them the box of MREs, and we sat down and ate them, and Officer Hahn came over and asked for all of our IDs. That's the first time that I remember having an interaction with him. By that point, I had already gone to Officer Jordan Anderson and also that officer with the glasses before Natalie was killed. And at that point, I was really having issues because I had already had another issue after Natalie's death with Jordan Anderson, again, not taking the situation seriously.
I only know of one, and again, the only issue I know about Jordan Anderson is that you brought him to me is when he contacted you in Nettie's.
Actually, I contacted him when I went into your office. Part of the reason that I was there is because the reason that I went back to your office is because that was entirely incomplete. There was at least twice as much time that I spent with that officer because he came back and we had a conversation as well. So when you said that he had left state, I was very not happy with that. Now, the reason that I had Molly Smith go in with me is because at that point I'd already had an issue with Cody Selhorst, and he had done that thing out at the lake. And then we came back into town and we sat in his office or in the office across the hallway from the sheriff's office. And I spoke to him for about 3.5 hours about um, the threats and harassment that I was dealing with in this town. Now, there's a lot of people in this town who are aware and have heard all of this stuff that's been going on, and have also taken part in the threatening and harassing. And there are people who are witnesses to this who have been telling me about this, that they needed to be coming down and telling you about that because my life was put in jeopardy and my friends' lives were. The things from Tim Beeson from 2017 needed to be documented in 2017. As far as when I went down there to make that report to you guys, Molly Smith said that she was going to call Jared Hahn and make sure that he took my report and took it seriously. When I went down there and I spoke with him, I had already had two issues with Cody Selhorst doing the same thing that Jordan Anderson had done, not doing his job. And because you have to take a report and make a report if there's a 911 call. And I had had police officers on multiple occasions here and in Colorado do exactly what Jordan Anderson had done when I called 911. I I really needed someone to go in with me, and that's what I'd been trying to get someone to do since before Natalie was killed. Now I have eyewitness statements and phone calls all over my YouTube and all over my Facebook. I mean, there's literally hundreds. Um, the whole situation was that I was made homeless because of Natalie's death. I had everything taken from me because of Natalie's death. The day after I tried to make that report to Officer Hahn, I let him know that I there was a lot of that was going on. One of the people who had threatened me, his name is Christopher Kurth, and there were a lot of people who were threatening me and throwing stuff at me, but the ones that I focused on were the ones whose names that I knew. And when I went to Officer Cody Selhorst about that, it was pretty important. Now, after I had spoken to Officer Hahn that day with you, and I really needed him to actually listen, Miss Jen Beebe had shown up with her own agenda that was based on the information that one of the officers had given her, that I had reached for one of their guns and that I had attempted to suicide by cop. And the situation there was that I had to go to court to try to file charges against officers in Colorado who had done the same thing that Jordan Anderson had done. And I couldn't afford to go to all of these court dates all over the place and still go to my appointments and still go to all of these other things. I needed to get down there and kill two birds with one stone. There's a woman named Kara Johnson Miles, as well as a few other people who were pretending that they were professionals. She had pretended that she was an autism advocate, and it turned out that she wasn't. She was slandering me in Facebook groups, which is part of the reason that so many people in the public were literally still threatening my life at that point. Matter of fact, I still have people to this day threatening me and harassing me and calling me, and I'm afraid to go to your office. Now, the day after that happened, I had had an incident where people were continuing to do that after I had spoken with Officer Hahn that day, and my phone had disappeared. And there's a few witnesses to that, one of them named Layla Dunan and another one named Dan Fabert. Now, Layla Dunan is not a real person, it's a fake persona on Facebook. Um, the thing is that I grew, well, I suppose I should focus on your officer's part in this. I literally
Okay.
chased Officer Hahn through town that day and out to Chapel Lake. And he pulled over at Chapel Lake and he got out of his vehicle. And I opened my door and he said, I already took your report. And I said, there is a lot more to it. But he had already turned around, gotten back in his vehicle, and drove off. At that point, it was very serious. And I literally had to have a police officer actually do something. I was still having my life threatened in this town. I needed to force the police to do it. And Molly Smith wasn't there to make anyone do it. Now, I was also told by Laura from Nettie's Treasures, as well as uh, Graham that he never got in contact with either of them about that incident that I was trying to turn in with Jordan Anderson. That incident with Jordan Anderson was a very serious situation that needed to be documented. Now, because I couldn't get Officer Hahn to do his job out there when I chased him around town and out to Chapel Lake, I went over to the Martindales to try to get help from them, and they had said that they would. I just needed to come back the next day. Now, in that period of time, I literally drove through town honking my horn, trying to get someone else to call 911, hoping that if someone else called 911, maybe you guys would take it seriously. Maybe you guys would take a look at the situation that I was going through. I was made a target because of slander by the Bollinger family. And because officers wouldn't do anything about it, I endured a whole year of abuse before Natalie was killed. I went to officers here in Deuel County, I went to officers in Boulder, and this whole situation started in Chesapeake, Virginia. Meanwhile, I've had to deal with repercussions of this being all over the news only looking at one side of it, police only looking at one side of it, and multiple police officers, not yours, but multiple police officers in Colorado assaulted me on multiple occasions for trying to turn in their officers. And I was afraid, especially after what happened with Jared Hahn the day after I had gone in to talk to him, and with him not investigating that situation at all, I was scared shitless to go into your office. When I was tearing up and down Chapel, Nebraska, honking my horn and slamming on the brakes, I mean, I literally at that point needed somebody to call 911 and make the police look at this. Now, when I went to talk to you, it didn't seem like it was taken as serious as it should have been. It was so detrimental to my safety, I actually went over to Joel Jay's office to try to get him to do something about it, and he outright refused. He outright refused to look at any of it, kept on claiming that all this stuff is out of jurisdiction. I said, no, it's not out of jurisdiction. It's happening right here in Chapel, Nebraska. Police officers are doing this. And I told him about Cody Selhorst, and I told him about that day with Jordan Anderson, as well as the situations that had happened in 2017. And there was actually another incident in January of 2017 because it started before that. In January 2017, Jordan Anderson and two state patrol officers took me to Sydney on suicide watch. I didn't need suicide watch, but when I went there, I was hoping to get help. When I was sent there, when I was screeching my horn and all that, Cody Selhorst actually pulled over and stopped me and threatened me to try to force me to leave town because I was trying to turn him in. And that needed to not happen. And I reported all of this stuff on my Facebook and my YouTube because I was too afraid to go into your office without somebody present. When I finally was able to get Jen Beebe to go in there with me, I needed to file a report against you guys in your office for not taking it seriously under the auspices of me being mentally ill. I was suicidal for a reason. Now, wanting to die and attempting to kill myself are two completely different things. I was not attempting to kill myself, I was attempting to force you guys to actually take a look at what was going on. I shouldn't have had to tear up and down Chapel, Nebraska to do that. That day that I spoke with you and I had flashed my flashlight at you because you guys had your lights pointed at me, and Officer Cody Selhorst was sitting over by Sean Jepson's, and Jace Jepson was out there. Jace Jepson is the one who came and rescued me on 4 different occasions and is a witness to the fact that I did speak to you guys more than just that one day, including yourself. Because I spoke to you. Do you remember when I spoke to you outside of Pumpkin Pantry?
No, because I think the only time I seen you at Pump and Pantry, you didn't. If I remember correctly, you didn't even talk to me. You just walked away.
Well, I have the conversation between me and Jace Jepson. It's on my YouTube, and he had something else to say. I was pretty sure that it was Officer Hahn that I had spoken to, but he said that it wasn't. He said that it was you that I had spoken to. Now, the other thing is, um, like those instances where I spoke with police officers, there were witnesses that needed to be spoken to, including Jace Jepson. And Jace Jepson had, on multiple occasions, come to rescue me when I was having a mental breakdown from trying to get you guys to do your jobs, to actually do something about me being at risk and my safety being at risk. And the fact is, police officers across the state of Colorado, Nebraska, and so on, because of the assault against me by Officer Waylon Lolatai in Boulder, Colorado, assault against a police officer is on my permanent arrest record. Now, the charges were dropped, but every officer that I have encountered has seen that, and they treat me in a very different way. And no matter what, when I try to go to officers, I get the mentally ill treatment, the it's not a big deal treatment, the I'm going to blow you off treatment. When I was pissed off at you about Jordan Anderson, there is a reason. Natalie Bollinger ended up dead. And the thing is, she shouldn't have been dead. And I shouldn't have been pushed and harassed by people like Tim Beeson and all of these meth heads over a situation that it didn't involve me. It was Natalie and her sister fighting over a boy in Virginia. It had nothing to do with me.
And that had nothing to do with Deuel County, Sean.
But the harassment and the threats.
That was in Colorado.
No, it wasn't in Colorado. It started in Chesapeake, Virginia. I drove 1,700 miles to get away from it. I went to Boulder, Colorado. In Boulder, Colorado, I was being assaulted and threatened on multiple occasions. So I left Boulder, Colorado, and I came here to Chapel, Nebraska. And the threats and harassment continued via the internet here. And after Natalie's death, which is when you found out about this situation, I literally had people in this town threatening me, calling me a child molester, saying that they heard over the news that I was a child molester and a murderer and a rapist. And to this day, I still have people who threaten me in this town. To this very day, I am afraid to go outside. My disability money was taken away. I should never have been taken to Scottsbluff. That day that I was there with Jen Beebe, I needed Jen Beebe.
John, when you come to us and you're trying to tell me a complaint, but at the same time you threaten your life.
I didn't threaten my life, though.
That's why we took you to Scottsbluff.
No, sir. No, sir. Jen Beebe had me taken to Scottsbluff because I told her that I had attempted suicide a week earlier. That was the situation with Cody Selhorst that I was trying to tell you about. She sent me there.
Let me finish though. But when you threaten suicide to harm yourself, we have to act on that.
But I didn't threaten suicide. I did not threaten suicide. I told her that I had attempted suicide a week earlier and failed. I was trying to tell you guys about the situation with Cody Selhorst. And because of the conduct of Jared Hahn, and because I didn't feel that you guys were taking any of it seriously, especially with multiple encounters. And yes, Jace Jepson, I'm going to post his conversation between him and I on this live streaming video on YouTube so that that is there for you to listen to. I mean, the fact is, on multiple occasions, every step of the way, I was trying to get someone to go in with me because the way that I was treated when I went in alone was nonchalant and got blown off.
Let's back up. So we take these reports for you. When you came into my office, and the first time I met you, you got so upset you were yelling at me in the hallway, and I yelled back and told you to knock it off.
That is not true. Do you have body cam footage of that? Do you have body cam footage of that?
Okay, can I finish? Because you said, I need to make a report. So, I put you with the Deputy Hahn to make this report, and then you got so upset, we never got to make
Sir, that was a week afterwards. That was a whole week after I had gone in.
Let's get to the point then.
The point is,
what are we making reports on? Because last time I checked, I gave you a disc with the body camera footage that we found at your request. We gave you a copy of the report.
Yes, sir, and it's on the internet too.
After that, you were so upset because we never made the report, but yet we did exactly what you wanted.
No, you didn't. You did not take my report about these multiple instances. Jared Hahn did not. All right? That one situation that happened, that one situation, you guys didn't even investigate. You didn't talk to the witnesses. Nobody did. Nobody called Graham. Nobody talked
Well,
to Laura Nelson.
I'm gonna have to do some research. If you're gonna throw all this information, I gotta go back and see what I can find and talk to Deputy
Exactly.
Hahn to see what we did or didn't do. Because, like I've told you before, I want to make things right. I want to do it right. But then when we hang up on the phone or we stop talking, you make your videos. All you do is get pissed and you talk and talk and talk about how we're trying to screw you over, how we're trying to do this. I've told you
Because
from
that's
the
the
beginning,
situation.
I want to help you.
So you need to help me, and it needs to be recorded. You have to wear your body cameras, and they need to be on. I have been speaking out about that very situation since before Natalie died, because officers need to actually record that so that it's not their word versus mine, because you keep calling me mentally ill and giving me the mentally ill treatment.
I don't like using that word.
And neither do I. That's the thing,
So
is that in between,
how about you give me a couple days to do my homework?
I still want to finish. I still want to finish what I'm saying.
Okay. All right,
when I was in there
I'm listening.
with Jen Beebe, that was a whole week after I'd gone in and sat down with Molly Smith and Deputy Hahn. All right. Now, the thing is, I was trying to explain the whole situation that had happened with Cody Selhorst, the multiple situations that had happened with Cody Selhorst by that point, because in between when I made that report with Deputy Hahn and when I finally went in there and was having such a severe panic attack because I needed someone there to make sure you did your jobs and make sure that you wore your body cameras, I needed someone there, and that's what I needed Jen Beebe to be there for. I needed her to be there to make sure that a report was actually taken seriously. Now, this situation, it was a series of gang stalkers who wouldn't leave me alone before Natalie died. And when it hit the news, people here in Chapel, Nebraska, who know me, never forgot that.
Oh, I bet.
And
you told me that before, and I would bet.
And I still have people who threaten me and harass me over that. Now, there are witnesses to the threats and the harassment, not just here in Chapel, Nebraska, but also on the internet and in multiple states. Every state that I have been to, I've run into somebody who recognized me from a Facebook group or from the news in Denver.
Yeah.
Now, the situation with Candace Bondurant and her mom, Lori, has to do with Officer Michael Beard doing exactly what Officer Jared Hahn or what uh, Officer Jordan Anderson had done, not take it seriously. He came back and he harassed Candace at work and harassed Candace on her way to take her kids to school. And her landlord threatened to throw her and her daughters out in the snow if she didn't kick me out of her house. I was forced to go live with a drug dealer at that point who was all fucked up on ketamine, and I have been from one volatile situation to another as a result of it. This needed to be taken care of. And those officers, as far as the situation with me being sent to Scotts Bluff, I mean, there were multiple instances after that where I spoke with Jared Hahn and uh, Bill Burr, including the day that I was released from the hospital up there and I came back to Chapel and I spoke with them on the courthouse steps to get my vehicle back. I was told that I had to be there by 8 o'clock. I went through hell trying to get from Scottsbluff back to Chapel by 8 o'clock. And when I got back, I was trying to make a report to Officer or State Patrolman Bill Burr. And that situation, he claimed that it was being filmed, so hopefully it is. But the thing is, I was trying to explain to him what was going on, and I was explaining to him that I didn't feel comfortable with Jared Hahn. And since then, Jared Hahn has been the go to guy every time that I go in there. That is a public safety issue because that is specifically one of the two officers after Jordan Anderson was gone, and we couldn't get his statement about what happened that night. Jordan Anderson needed to be requisitioned, Jared Hahn needed to be requisitioned, and Cody Selhorst needed to be requisitioned. It is never okay for police officers to try to force a person and threaten and coerce a person into leaving town And the way that Cody Selhorst dealt with that situation was not okay. The situation that happened with Chris Kurth needed to be documented when I took it to him. That happened in this town. The situation that's been happening with Derek Jepson happened in this town. These situations all stem from that very same instance in Chesapeake, Virginia, and everything that I have gone through and me trying to turn that in. Now, Jace Jepson is willing to testify. The same thing with Jen Beebe. She said that she is willing to testify that your officers had told her that I attempted to grab their firearm and suicide by cop. I spoke with her when I was in Scotts Bluff. Now, that warrant in Scotts Bluff was because instead of police officers listening to me when I was trying to turn in Jared Hahn and Cody Selhorst, I was shipped to Scotts Bluff. And when you end up in a hospital like that with a police escort, especially the police officers specifically that you're trying to turn in, it is a very dangerous and volatile situation. And those doctors just assume that you must have done something wrong, that you were in the wrong. And that's what you have to deal with. Now, when you told me that you had only watched the first part of that CD, and I asked you why you didn't watch the rest of it, and you said, well, your friend said that you are bipolar, that he didn't say that I was bipolar. He said that I was autistic at the very beginning of that video. Now, when I was at that hospital in Scotts Bluff, they didn't keep me for a 72-hour hold. They kicked me out of that hospital after only 20 hours. And I was attempting to file a report about the way that I was treated there as well, because one of their people there named Ruben had actually assaulted me. And by the way, I had altercations with many of their staff.
That's why you got
I didn't throw a computer through the wall. I held their computers hostage because they were trying to put drugs in me for trying to file a report against your officers. I tried to do that when I went to your office, and I was continuing to try to do that when I was up there in Scotts Bluff. They had assumed my guilt because of those officers who took me up there.
Your guilt. You were taken to the hospital because you had threatened suicide.
I didn't threaten suicide, though.
We can't just take anyone to a hospital because we feel like it. That's against the
That's
law.
the thing, is that Jen Beebe had me transferred there because I told her that I had attempted suicide a week earlier. You absolutely did. Don't lie to me. That's the point, is that you're trying to cover for the wrongdoing of your officers.
Listen, so far I've been patient and listening and answering your questions, but some of the stuff you're telling me is absolutely false.
It is not false. Now you're lying to me. And that's why I need somebody actually there in person. That's why I had Molly Smith go in with me, is because you are covering for the wrongdoing of your officers and yourself.
Well, here's the deal, Sean. I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. I've been on the phone with you for over 30 minutes. I want to work this out, but if you're not rational,
see, that's the thing, is that I am rational. You're covering for the wrongdoing of your officers and outright lying.
Just pick people up and take them to a hospital.
That is exactly what you did.
Well, Sean,
what I am telling you is that Jen Beebe had me committed to that hospital because of my suicide attempt when Officer Cody Selhorst was sitting across from the lake.
There you go. You just answered my statement, Sean.
I had tried to kill myself a week earlier over your officers not doing their jobs. I was not still trying to kill myself. I was attempting to make a police report against your officers.
And you want to make a report so someone doesn't take your report, or someone doesn't listen to you because every time we talk to you, you get so angry.
That's because you keep lying to me and talking over me. Let me finish what I'm saying.
No, I've listened to you, Sean.
No, you haven't. You are obviously covering for the wrongdoing of your officers. Now let me finish what I was saying. Your officers lied to Jen Beebe. They outright lied to her, first of all.
Okay.
Second of all, I have witnesses, including Jace Jepson. Third of all, I was transferred to Scotts Bluff because I had told Jen Beebe that I had attempted suicide a week earlier. I wasn't still trying to kill myself. I was trying to make a police report. Obviously, I was in your office, not busy hanging myself or cutting my throat. Police officers in multiple states did this. When you try to turn in an officer, they ship you off like you're trying to kill yourself.
No, we don't do that, Sean.
Was I trying to kill myself in your office? Was I?
Say that again.
Was I trying to kill myself in your office?
You was not.
That's right, I wasn't. And that's exactly the point. I was there for the same thing that I was there for when I went in with Molly Smith.
Been in this office for a while because last time
That's because I am scared of getting the mentally ill treatment.
Telling people all this nonsense about us being against you.
It is not nonsense because Laura Nelson was never spoken with about that incident. Graham was never called about that incident.
Anything else you'd like to ask about or talk to me about? Because I'm not going to listen anymore, Sean. If you wish for me to,
that's the point. Is that you are intentionally avoiding the situation. You are covering for the wrongdoing of your officers.
Well, again, that's your version of the story.
And my version is the correct and honest version.
Well,
you needed to have your body cameras on, and that is why I record these conversations.
I don't have everything in front of me, Sean, but there are some things I can without a doubt say, no, you're wrong. That didn't happen.
That's because you're a liar who's covering for the wrongdoing of your officers. Officers who you let leave.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
It's not how I feel. It's the situation as it happened.
It's not, Sean.
It is.
It's not.
That is why I need someone to go in with me to make a police report against you guys, to force somebody to look at the evidence. Somebody obviously who is not you.
Talking about on this whole thing, Sean.
Sir, I have spoken with Jen Beebe. I was in Scotts Bluff on that warrant in December. I spoke with Jen Beebe while I was there. She said that the reason she made the decisions that she made is because one of your officers told her I attempted to suicide by cop.
Okay, so what you're telling me, you're pissed off because we're worried about your life.
You're not worried about my life. You're worried about covering for the wrongdoing of your officers.
What did they do wrong?
I've been telling you what they did wrong since we got on the phone.
They didn't take your report. That's what they did wrong. Okay.
It wasn't just a report. It's reports about threats and violence against my life in this very town.
Okay.
That happened repeatedly with your department. Before I met you, these situations happened on multiple occasions. That's why I was afraid to go into your office without somebody present who knew me. That's the reason that I went in with Molly Smith, because when Jared Hahn blew me off the day after that, that wasn't the first time your officers had blown me off. When Jordan Anderson blew me off at my grandmother's funeral, that was not the first time that I had been blown off by your department. That wasn't even the first time in 2018. Your officers did that repeatedly. And by not turning on your body cams, you make it your word against mine instead of doing the right thing. You are playing and preying on the term mentally ill to make you magically okay.
Said that, but you, Sean.
Sir, you are trying to make it your word versus mine, which is why I record these things.
I've corrected you twice. I have never used that terminology in talking to you. I've never said that, and I never will.
Thank you for that. However, it is the public opinion created, and the way that I was treated, that is the mentally ill treatment, whether you say it or not.
Well, just like it goes, I cannot control what you say out of your mouth.
And you can't control your officers either.
Control your thoughts, and I'm not going to try. But don't you put words in my mouth, because I never said that.
I'm not putting your words in your mouth. I'm telling you what your actions have shown me.
If you wish to make complaints on people threatening, harassing you, you call this office and we will take that report.
Well, sir.
Just like we do when people call and complain about you.
Well, sir, that's what I've been trying to do, and you don't take it seriously. I needed to be able to take Cody Selhorst to court as well. Now, the three people that I need to take to court now because of threats against me are Derek Jepson, the gentleman who lives across the street from Jeff Baldridge, and of course, what's that guy's name? Chris Kurth. which I reported to Cody Selhorst.
I will go back and check the files, Sean.
Thank you.
You said that was Cody. You made the complaint to Cody, and that was
Cody Selhorst was given a call that I was trying to kill myself out at Chapel Lake. Those were his words. So that will be a 911 call. It was more than likely given by Brenda Dickinson, and it could have been any number of people, however. And yeah, he came out to Chapel Lake. He watched me hooked up to a propane or a what do you call that? A helium tank for balloons, and I was attempting to kill myself with that. And he pulled up behind me and saw me wearing that mask. And when he saw me doing that, he drove around to the other side of the lake. And then when it didn't kill me, I got out of my vehicle and I called a guy named Brandon Jepson, who was telling me, Sean, you're not suicidal. If you were going to kill yourself, you'd have found a way to do it by now. I had literally just tried to kill myself. And so I got in my vehicle and I was going to drive back into town to try to make a police report again about the things that I was dealing with. And that's when Cody Selhorst pulled his vehicle in front of me outside at Chapel Lake. And then we went to the sheriff's department there, and I talked to him for a good 3.5 hours. At the end of that, he took me to Pump and Pantry and bought me a sandwich, but nothing ever happened with Chris Kurth. Nothing was ever done to investigate it.
What do you? Chris Kurth threatened you.
Yes, sir.
Threw something at you? What did he do?
No, he didn't throw anything at me. Him and another gentleman whose name that I don't know, when I was walking down First Street, they pulled up right next to me and were telling me that I needed to get out of town. And they were being very threatening, both in their tone and in the things that they were saying. Now, it's been so long that you would have to actually go to Cody Selhorst's body cameras to find out exactly what it is that they said, because I have dealt with hundreds of threats and hundreds of these situations. When I brought that situation to you about Ted Bollinger, that wasn't the only one. I have literally hundreds of those on my Facebook. I had hundreds of those by the point that I went to talk to you. But the people that I needed to actually take to court and actually defend myself against were Ted Bollinger and his family.
Are you? I got to ask you this, Sean. Are you worried about the public's opinion of you?
Sir, that's what I've been. That's what I've been threatened, harassed, and assaulted over since then. Because police officers would not do their jobs.
At a certain point, I can't change the public opinion. Just like your opinion of the sheriff's office.
These aren't opinions. These are facts, sir.
I cannot change what someone thinks of you, Sean, is what I'm trying to tell you.
What I'm telling you is that the things that have happened to me have harmed me greatly.
Okay. What else do we got? We got Chris Kurth and the threats and some other guy. But what was the Ted Ballinger? He lives in Colorado?
Yes, sir.
That's Natalie's relatives, family. There's nothing I can do
Natalie's
about that
dad. That's the thing. When your officers came and talked to me about Mandy Hughes and Alyssa Rainwater, do you know where they live?
Because you live here.
They live in Colorado.
Ballingers live in Colorado. You live
Mandy
here.
Mandy Hughes lives in Colorado.
You're doing that here.
Mandy Hughes lives in Colorado. Alyssa Rainwater lives in Colorado.
Right, but listen to what I'm saying. The threats, the harassments are coming from here, going that way.
What are the threats? I threatened to put their phone number out there for God and everybody. Did I actually do it? No, I didn't. The thing is that those people were also witnesses to the threats and harassment that I've gone through, including by the police. Police repeatedly refusing to do their jobs.
Is where do the threats originate from? Where do the harassing phone calls originate from? When you do it and you're in Deuel County, the threats, the harassment, I'm just saying threats because the harassment starts here. The Ballingers, it started in Colorado.
That's right. And when I went to the police in Colorado, I was repeatedly assaulted because they did the same thing that Officer Jordan Anderson did, and Cody Selhorst did, and Jared Hahn did.
Okay, so why is it acceptable? We'll just talk about that since you're talking about it now. Why is it acceptable for you to harass and bother the rainwater?
Because they are witnesses. And they were afraid of police and afraid of the Bollingers as well. And the fact is that my life will always be at risk. My money was taken away from me. My housing was taken away from me. And all of my predators got away with it because police keep treating me like I'm mentally ill and sending me to places like Scotts Bluff. All this time, I've been trying to get the police in all of these jurisdictions to do that.
Well, I have no control over the Bollingers.
That's right, but you do have control over the threats, harassment, and assaults that I have to endure in this town.
And we will look into that.
Well, sir, since that actually involved several of your officers, the FBI needs to be involved. I was gang stalked.
That's how you feel. You need to do with it that way.
That's the thing, is that I don't have the ability to, because your officers and other officers did such terrible things to hide their own wrongdoing and prevent me from making a report, including lying to Jen Beebe. I had to do some very drastic things to prevent dangerous drugs from being pumped into my system. I admitted to all of the crimes that I committed. I admitted to tearing up and down chapel. And you know what? I did that for a reason. And you can't pretend that that didn't happen because those charges are on my record.
No, they are. I'm not going to disagree with you.
And those charges were dropped, were they not?
Yes, they were.
And they didn't need to be dropped.
You and the county attorney came to some sort of an agreement.
No, me and the county attorney did not come to some sort of an agreement. I wanted to take that to court so that I could show your officers' wrongdoing and your wrongdoing.
See, Sean, here we go. I can't take a complaint on myself. Okay? If that's what you want to do, then you need to take those complaints to the right people.
That's the problem, is that I don't have the ability to do that any longer. I don't have the ability to take care of myself or feed myself.
You have the phone. You're intelligent enough to look up. You can look up the FBI. You can look.
All right, asshole, I'm going to say it to you like this. There are over 100 phone calls to the FBI about you and your officers. The FBI refuses to openly investigate anything.
Stop yelling. We're just talking.
All right, that'll work.
I'm trying to point you, Sean, in the right direction. If you don't like how I'm doing it, I'm trying to point you in a direction you can go. Try the Attorney General's office.
I have already done that.
Control those offices, Sean.
I have already done that. They refuse to take my report because of the term mentally ill.
I'm taking your report just like I have before.
Well, I certainly hope you investigate your officers. Meanwhile, you do need to talk to Jace Jepson.
Right now, I have nothing.
You need to talk to Jace Jepson, and you need to talk to Laura Nelson.
Are you going to stop harassing the rainwater lady?
I'm not harassing her. I haven't called her since.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the thing, sir, is that I need to be safe. I need the things that were taken from me when Natalie Bollinger died. I need those things back.
See, Sean, I have no control over that. That is all in Colorado. That is.
It's not all in Colorado, sir. It took place here in Deuel County Sheriff's Department in your office. The same treatment that I got from your officers, I also got from the officers in Colorado.
You tend to, how do I say this? You tend to be very upset by the time they talk to you.
That's because I've been sir, by the time I talked to you, I'd been attempting to get the police to do something about the gang stalking and harassment and assaults by the Bollingers and their friends for over a year. For over a year by the time that she died, including in this town. Police here wouldn't do anything about it. They said I had to go to wherever. The police in the places where these people lived said, hey, you aren't here. You need to do that where you're at. That's over the internet.
When you would get here, I remember the complaints you brought in. You know, we talked about them when you weren't upset, and you had said that they happened before you left Colorado. And when you got here, at that time,
no, I told you that they happened while I was in Nebraska. That harassment that I was getting from Ted Bollinger at my grandmother's funeral, I was in Nebraska. My grandmother was buried in Brule, Nebraska. Her services took place at Hollicheck Funeral Home here in Chapel, Nebraska. I was at Nettie's Treasures with Laura Nelson and Graham here in Chapel, Nebraska. That very night that I spoke with Officer Jordan Anderson was the very night those texts were being sent to me by the Bollingers, by Ted Bollinger, and by Alicia Bollinger. Meanwhile, Alicia Bollinger, it was on Alicia's account, and Ted was giving no indication that Alicia was alive. Alicia had my phone number at that point, and Ted was asking for my phone number, which is what red flagged it and ultimately had me calling 911. These texts went on between me and him on YouTube for over 7 hours, sir. And he claimed that he wanted to speak to me, and I wasn't going to speak to him unless there was an officer present. I needed to know that his daughter was okay, and I needed her to either talk to me or I needed Jordan Anderson to hear her voice. I needed verification that she was okay. Now, as soon as they talked to Jordan Anderson, they stopped magically wanting to talk to me as soon as an officer was involved. Meanwhile, Ted was erasing the stuff that he was typing right after I would reply to it. But I was taking screenshots of what he was typing to me, so I still had that evidence, and I was trying to show it to Jordan Anderson. In that video with me and Jordan Anderson, I was trying to show him screenshots that had happened within the last 7 hours, some of them within 20 minutes of him showing up.
I don't remember that being on the video, Sean.
That's You don't remember that being on the video? You need to watch the video.
I have to go look. I'm not saying
it's on YouTube. I'll attach it to this. I will attach it to the live video that I have been streaming since I called you. I am literally going to attach that and Jace Jepson's conversation between him and I so that you can watch both of those, and so can the rest of the world. Laura Nelson is scared shitless. Did you know that? She is scared of being targeted. Mandy Hughes is scared of being targeted by the Bollingers. Did you know that?
No,
Did you know that lots of people...
Sean, I don't. And we've never really had a conversation because you tend to get upset and that's it. So no, I don't know the Bollinger stuff. I don't know that case. I know what I've seen on the news. I know that you were interviewed. I know that you did not do it. And I know a short time later they got the guy who did it.
And the threats and harassment and abuse that I endured over that and continue.
I don't know anything about that case. It didn't happen here. I don't.
But situations involving that and as a result of that did happen here, including the threats against my life and people throwing things at me and all of this terrible stuff. Yes, it happened here in Chapel, Nebraska.
Well, I've never got a chance to actually hear this from you because every time we start talking very little about it, you get upset and that's the end of it. I never know who, I never know why, or you scream it at me.
It's because you're busy getting defensive. You're busy getting defensive in defense of your officers.
When you're screaming and hollering at me because
that's because I'm trying to get heard. There is a lot that has gone on.
I'm not going to deny that. I agree with that.
And you
but
keep...
at the same time, I can't hear when someone's hollering at me. Nor do I want to be honest with you.
And that's the point, is that I started off talking nicely to you. Every single time that I went and spoke to these officers, I started off talking nice to you.
The conversation the way you want to take it. We had a great conversation at your house the other day, didn't we?
No, we didn't.
On your front porch.
Although the fact that you spoke with me, you got to verify for the viewers here in America that yes, that situation where I was talking about Jordan Anderson is the truth. Now, the fact that he was gone and you couldn't get a hold of him because he was out of state when I went in to talk to you about that situation, is that true? Was he out of state at that point?
Yeah, he took a job at another agency in South Dakota.
Jordan Anderson did.
Absolutely.
And so did Cody Selhorst.
Yes, sir.
So both of these officers that I was trying to turn in for not doing their jobs, which you already verified that Jordan Anderson had not, were allowed to leave state.
I verified that we had a video. You said he didn't do a report, and I said, well, everything on my end, he did not do a report and document it. That is correct. But we had it on video.
Only part of it on video. And the threats that I went down there and was showing Officer Hahn were one of many situations where I was threatened in this town over the situation with Natalie Bollinger. This is all over the situation with Natalie Bollinger. Every situation that I have encountered has been over Natalie Bollinger.
Yes, it has. If that's what you say, yes, it has.
Sir, I have piles and piles and piles of evidence.
I know you got piles and piles and piles of paper, Sean.
It's not paper, it's evidence. All of it is actual evidence, actual witnesses. My YouTube videos have actual witnesses. Many people tried to actually make reports. Many people. And were denied the right to do so.
For the life of me, I don't know what's going on. If you want to make reports, we need to come in and get these report documented, whatever it is. But I can't. You want to go back years? I can't go back years. If you want to go back to this Chris Kurth, if I got nothing, you say this happens, he say it didn't happen. What do you want me to do? Write him a ticket and go to court?
Well, sir, that's the thing, is that I've been threatened on multiple occasions, and yes, something needs to be done. It actually needs to be documented.
Okay, can we start at one place? Can we start between us?
Yes, sir.
If you want to make complaints, I need you to call him in, and here's another thing. We're a small agency. I don't have 15 guys working here. If you call in and make a report to a deputy, and the deputy you don't like, there's not much I can do about that.
No, sir, it's not a matter of me not liking that deputy. It's about that deputy doing wrong things repeatedly, like Officer Hahn did. Officer Hahn was trying to protect his fellow officers.
The stories that you say and the stories that the deputies say.
That's right. And between investigating it and assuming they're right, you're going to assume they're right. Meanwhile, I was right about Officer Jordan Anderson, now wasn't I?
He didn't make the report, Sean. He didn't document it.
I know.
He did the report and made it for you. That wasn't good enough. You were still pissed off he didn't make the report. He didn't make the report, so we got to move on. How can we make things better? Because this deputy made this mistake. We move on to the next deputy. Well, you're upset because that deputy didn't sit there and talk to you when you were yelling at him. I don't know for sure. I don't know what conversation.
Sir, when I went in there with Molly Smith, how many times did I yell at Officer Hahn? How many times?
I don't remember.
None. Zero fucking times. I have the whole goddamn thing recorded.
If you lose your cool, we're done talking.
That's the thing, is that you need to listen to what I'm saying instead of getting defensive and jumping all over the place. It was gang stalking.
This department, like, we're rugs under your feet, Sean. I don't do it to you. You're not going to do it to me. That's how it works.
Sir, what I'm telling you is that I needed these threats, harassment, and assault against me to be documented on multiple occasions, and officers did not do that. I should not have had to chase Officer Hahn through town. That situation where you and I spoke outside of Pumpkin Pantry for a good long while, Jace Jepson was across the street, and I am going to post that to this video, because that conversation between me and...
Please do. I don't know. How about this? From this day forward, January 14th, 2020, and it is 12:31 p.m. When you get harassed, you come to the sheriff's office or call, and we will take your report.
Sir, at this point, the things that have happened to me as a result of your officers trying to hide their wrongdoing and lying to Jen Beebe, I have been through hell because of that.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but there's two sides of the story, Sean. And you're on Facebook Live or live streaming, whatever, and you get to tell your side of the story.
That's right, because you guys did not have your body cameras on because you were protecting the wrongdoing of your fellow officers, which is a standard tactic when somebody comes in to turn in a bad officer.
I gotta go. I got on a couple of appointments I gotta take care of. If that's how you feel, that's fine. I don't know. I don't know what we're protecting. I don't know who we're protecting. And you feel you've been wrong done, then we need to fix that problem. How we fix it from here, I don't know, because you're stuck in the past. There were issues.
Sir, the things that happened to me in the past and the things that are on my permanent record as a result of it are very major issues that were used to prevent me from being able to make police reports repeatedly. Are you not understanding that?
What these police reports would have done, Sean.
Those police reports would have documented the threats, harassment, and assaults that I was going through and proved that I was attempting at every step of the way to do it the legal and the right way. I was trying at every step of the way. When I went in there with Molly Smith, I was trying to do it the right way. When I called 911 with Jordan Anderson, I was trying to do it the right way. When I flagged him down, I was trying to do it the right way. When I had you guys call Jen Beebe, I was trying to do it the right way.
Because they didn't document and do a report. If I have a face-to-face conversation with you and you ask me some questions, it doesn't mean I'm going to come back to my office and document them. That's not how that works. I don't know what conversations you had with Jordan Anderson that wasn't recorded. I don't know what conversations you had with Cody Sellhorst because he's seen you alongside the road, Sean. I don't know.
And that's why I was trying to report those things.
They no longer work here. If you really want to make a complaint, then keep doing what you're doing. I don't know how to fix that.
You can start by talking to Laura Nelson about that situation.
Okay, I will set an appointment up with Laura Nelson and I will visit with her.
And I hope you have your body camera on at the time.
I will follow my policy, Sean.
Is your policy to turn on your body camera?
About that situation. I will start there, okay?
Thank you. Now, please have your body camera on at the time that you do it.
Trust me, I will.
Thank you.
We'll start there and then see where I need to go next. How's that?
Sounds good. After that, I need to be able to make reports about these other situations, and I need to know that you are not going to treat me the way that you treated me in this phone call when I tried to tell you about Jordan Anderson, Cody Sellhorst, and Jared Hahn. You don't need to defend them. You need to investigate it. You need to do something about that.
I will do my job. How's that?
Natalie Bollinger is dead because your department didn't do their job, sir.
No, don't you dare.
I am daring. I am absolutely daring.
Well, the thing is, you can say what you want, but I will call bullshit on that because that is not right.
It's absolutely not right that she's dead. It's not right that I've been through 3 years of hell.
Have a good day, Sean.
Lovely.